everybody, Writer JJ89 here, and I am bringing you my updated AP Trickster for Worldslayer. I'm going to go over the build, going to include some clips of some gameplay, and overall what I think of how I've got this set up currently. So let's start taking a look at the build. I'm going to start with the guns first. You see I'm rocking the pistols. These pistols, right now, they're non-APOC. I know, you're probably thinking, why aren't you running the Apocalypse piece? Well, I'm waiting for a good one to drop, or a Torment and Agony that comes with First Things First, so I can roll Death Renome to it. Just waiting for it to drop, or show up with Tiago eventually. So First Things First, along with Armor Pierce, can really combo well if you're using no resistance against the Fortified and Unstoppable Force, as this will stack Anomaly Power and you can hit some pretty good hits. Death Renome is pretty much free firepower and anomaly power depending on how many of your equipped skills are on cooldown. You see if you have 2 of your equipped skills are on cooldown, you get a firepower bonus, otherwise it's anomaly power. And this is so if you have 0, 1, or 3 of your skills on cooldown, you get an anomaly power bonus. The first shotgun I'm using is our beloved Anemoy. This rolled with Moaning Winds and Radiation Splash in the APOC slot, and of course I rolled Clip Combustion over Anomaly Surge, so we have a triple reload mod shotgun. Pretty much god roll for this shotgun. If you pick up one of these, keep it, level it up. Great damage. The other shotgun I'm using is just a Thunderclap. Really, I'm running this because it's just a lot of lightning. You get Nicola's Revenge, you get Strings of Goss, and Ultimate Storm Whip. Just happened to be what rolled into the APOC slot. And just doing a lot of electric damage, lightning damage. Feel free to use Mythos is a good one with Omen. The Sunfall with Firestorm is another good one to use if you want to do any kind of damage over time, whatever you like using. The biggest things here is really having the pistols that have Armor Pierce and Death Renome. And First Things First, if you don't mind shooting and reloading every rotation. And of course, get you an Anemoy. Or Guillotine, if it happens to roll Moaning Winds in the APOC slot, you pretty much have the same thing. But I prefer the Anemoy. It just, you can empty it quicker at the start of expeditions, trials, etc. So that's it for the guns. Let's take a look at the gear. We have the Goggles of the Edge of Time. Of course, we have our Anomaly Power, Cooldown Reduction, Skills Life Leech. We got Double Slice. We have Danger Close, which is one of the new Tier 3 mods. This is a must-have for any Anomaly Power build, no matter what kind you're making, as this is 6% Anomaly Power bonus for each enemy in close range, and that stacks up to 4 times. So that's 24% Anomaly Power bonus for each enemy in close range. Up to 4 times, of course. So that's a must-have for any Anomaly Power build. The APOC slot on this was pretty much God roll. It rolled with the Anomaly Echo, so every time we use a skill, it doesn't stack, unfortunately, but when we use a skill, we're going to get Anomaly Power for 6 seconds. Would be nice if it stacked. It does not, so it just works one time, but Anomaly Power is Anomaly Power. So this is definitely one of the mods that you want to make sure you're running. For chest piece, this was hard to find, and we finally came across a good one. So I'm going with Anomaly Power, Status Power, and Skills Life Leech, as cooldown reduction is pretty much maxed out. And we're not even level 75 yet. Just level 67 right now. And so decided to go with Status Power instead. And as you see here, I am running Time Rift. Now, you probably remember from my New Horizon build, I was using Venator's Knife. with Hunt the Prey and Temporal Blade. Well, now I am actually switching it up to Time Rift. And I've said before, Time Rift is really not that good. It doesn't work that well against elites and things like that once they ignore it. But you're doing so much damage with this at once that it doesn't really matter. The Pax Tree has really helped to increase the damage that we need to do, where Time Rift can actually really excel here. So we're using Pain Transfer. 20% of weapon damage and anomaly damage dealt to one affected enemy is transferred to another affected enemy. This can do a ton of damage by the end of your run. A ton of damage. Sometimes during my runs, this is doing more damage than the actual Temporal Blade. Damage Absorber. This is a pretty standard defensive mod. It increases your armor and your resistance. The 10% resistance is really not anything that's going to help you too much, but the armor helps, especially against enemies that are shooting you. That extra armor really helps with that. And of course we have our no resistance against the fortified. Now I'm going to explain the no resistance against the fortified and unstoppable force here once we look at unstoppable force, because that mod and unstoppable force, along with the first things first, is a great combination of mods to have for an anomaly power build. And I'm going to explain why these work here in a little bit. We decided to stick with Damage Absorber because really the temporal armor is nice on the boots, but we're actually going with different boots, so I decided to go ahead and stick with Damage Absorber because it's still a good defensive mod, and it's the only defensive mod that we have. So let's move on to the pants. We're using our Pants to the Edge of Time. We have Captain Hunter, Strong Slice, and this rolled with Slasher in the APOC slot. And this is a great roll. It doesn't get much better than this, because we want to have that extra activation for Temporal Blade. Now Captain Hunter was nerfed. You get a little bit less damage with it, but it's still a great mod to have against your leads. For gloves, we are running the Gloves of the Edge of Time. It is a health roll, but that's okay. Having one piece as a health roll is fine, as long as you're not using like dead mods. I know I see a lot of people who run the chest piece even though they don't use Cyclone Slice. And yes, you're going to get a higher anomaly power roll, but you're also going to be running dead mods. And you don't want to run dead mods for the sake of having another anomaly power roll. So you can see even at level 67, I have 135,000 health. And that's with one health roll, and I've rolled some into my Ascension Tree, which you'll see here in a little bit. I'm really not complaining about any of that. So on the gloves for mods, we have Geiger's Wave. And I've replaced Claws with Geiger's Wave, because I used to run Claws in the New Horizon build, because that would apply Vulnerable when we melee. Well, we don't need to do that now, because Time Rift will apply Vulnerable status when they get hit by the wave. So, hit them with that wave, and you can do 15% more damage to all the enemies that have Vulnerable status. That works out perfectly. And I kind of lucked out with this. I found these with Tiago. I was just rolling him a couple times, trying not to spend all my resources on re-rolling him. But I was able to get a pair of these gloves that had the long range in the APOC slot, tripling the skills range. That is great if you want to go if you're in a room full of mobs, get them all lined up, chasing after you, fire off that Time Rift, and you can pretty much wipe out that entire line of enemies. Just like that. It can't clear rooms as fast as Pyro, because Pyro, they pretty much burn up an entire room. But this does a really good job of killing out big groups of enemies. Lastly, for our boots, we are using the foot gear of the Cannonball. And you're probably thinking, why, oh why, are you using Cannonball? Phantom Dash is crap. The other mod on it is crap for an AP build, but you know what? We're not even using that. So let's talk about it. We're using a little bit of pain. Using the skill deals 3.7 million damage, and that's at level 67, over 6 seconds to affected targets. That's quite a lot of damage. And we're going to talk about more how this helps when we look at the Pax Tree. Phantom Dash, you're probably thinking, yeah, it's not a very good mod, I would consider that a dead mod. I wouldn't. You can easily get surrounded by enemies here, especially in a lot of the new content. You have a lot of animals chasing you. It's easy to get surrounded. Phantom Dash helps you pass through those enemies, get out of trouble, especially if Hunt the Prey is not working. Because at the time of making this video, Hunt the Prey is kind of bugged. Been a lot of posts about it. They have stated that it should be getting fixed in a future patch. But for now, Phantom Dash helps to get through enemies if you get surrounded. Now, Unstoppable Force. Been talking about this a little bit. Unstoppable Force increases your anomaly power by 50% of your resistance piercing. Now, when I mentioned no resistance against the fortified earlier on the chest piece, increases your resistance piercing by 100% of your armor piercing. Let's take a look at the stats. You see my resistance pierce is 70% right now. 40% of that is coming from the armor piercing that I have here up above. Right now, I have my pistols on. That is 30%. And my Ascension Tree comes with another 10%. When we look at the Ascension Tree, armor piercing node gives 10%. With that said, 40% goes in the resistance pierce. We have 70%. Unstoppable Force increases our anomaly power by that resistance pierce number. Now, when we combine that with First Things First, first shot after every reload hits with armor piercing increased by 50%. So let's close this real quick. Take a shot. We'll reload. Now don't take another shot. You want to shoot and then reload. You see the anomaly power jumped up to 2 million. We were at 1.8 million before. We have 90% armor pierce and 120% resistance pierce. Because of Unstoppable Force, 120% is going into anomaly power. That's free damage you can't pass up. Even without First Things First active, we're still at 1.8 million anomaly power. That's free damage. So that's it for the gear. Let's go ahead and take a look at the skills that we're using. We're using Temporal Blade, of course. Time Rift, because it is a deception skill. Keep that in mind. And we're using Hunt the Prey, because it's our movement skill. Helps us dance around the battlefield. Those are the 3 skills we're using. Since we're at the global cooldown cap, we're pretty much over the cap. Our cooldowns aren't going to get any shorter. And that's okay. 5.4 seconds are our longest cooldown. That's not a problem at all. Everything is back by the time you're done with the rotation. And we're going to talk about the rotation at the end. So our class tree setup, it's a pretty standard anomaly power trickster's setup. You want to make sure yours looks very similar to this. Because with these here, deception skills gives you anomaly power. Movement skill gives you anomaly power. Using your damage skill gives you anomaly power. Movement skill gives you resistance piercing. Now remember when I talked about increasing your resistance piercing and it converting to anomaly power, get another 25% here. It's just more increases. At the end of any damage skill, increase your armor piercing by 30% and resistance piercing by 25% for 10 seconds. So you get 30% armor piercing and 25% resistance piercing. Now that 30% armor piercing is going to go into your resistance piercing as well. And you're going to convert all of that to anomaly power. And then our final node, with each enemy in close range, your anomaly power is increased by 6%. That's very similar to the danger close, but there's no cap on this. So you're getting even more anomaly power. Now you might wonder, why am I using Shadow's Embrace instead of Shielded Readiness? Well, Shielded Readiness is okay. It's not bad per se, but for each enemy that dies in close range, you don't get healed. You just get additional shield gain. I prefer to just keep the healing as it is. Get the normal shield gain and the normal healing, and I just went ahead and went by the firepower increase by 15% of your anomaly power. If you ever switch over to like the Thunderclap or your other weapon that's not your Anemoy, and you want to do a little bit of shooting, then you're going to get 15% firepower increase. So that's going to help with that. So let's take a look at the Pax Tree. We're going to the Exploiter tree, and we're kind of going on the lower part of the tree. So we have Trigger Man. Damage is increased by 15% for each skill on cooldown. Deception skill is going to grant you 15% shield every 1 second for 4 seconds. You could run Cheap Shot if you wanted to, but since your resistance pierce is going to be well over 100%, you don't really need to worry about lowering the armor and resistance pierce of the armor and resistance of the enemy. You're going to be well over 100% resistance pierce. So this gives you a little extra survivability every time you use a Time Rift, which again is every 5.4 seconds that it comes back and it's available. Our next one is Failsafe Protocols. When your health drops below 30%, you get 50% shield and 20% damage mitigation for 3 seconds, and that can be triggered every 10 seconds. That's great for survivability. It's going to help keep you up, especially if you're getting surrounded and you need to get into a good spot to use your Time Rift. This is going to help keep you alive. Next one is the Goals Beyond Understanding. Now, damage done to elites tagged with deception skills has a 25% chance to be increased by 200%. And you see Slow Trap, Venator's Knife, and Time Rift count as tagging enemies with deception skills. So you tag an elite or a group of enemies, including a bunch of elites with deception skills, you have 25% chance for that damage that you do to them to be increased by 200%. With Venator's Knife, you apply that, you do damage, and the first damage that you do while the knife is there, the damage is doubled. Well, that's great, but you only get that one time. So you get the Venator's Knife, do your damage, you get a 25% chance to be increased by 200%. Your Time Rift, as long as the Time Rift is active on that enemy, that chance is increased. It even works for the damage done by the little bit of pain and pain transfer. So you can easily wipe out a lot of enemies, even elites. If you get them all lined up together, they're all doing damage to each other, you can clear out a group very easily. Lastly is our Meticulous Schemer. 200% of killing damage on enemies tagged with deception skills is divided amongst other tagged enemies. This does not appear to be working correctly at the time of recording this video, as you can hit a bunch of enemies, even with Venator's Knife or Time Rift, and use Temporal Blade on them, and if the Temporal Blade kills an enemy, I've noticed plenty of times that damage does not spread to the other marked enemies. But if I were to hit them with the Anemoy and kill them with Moaning Winds and the Clip Combustion and Radiation Splash combined, then I have noticed that the damage is done to the other enemies. So it doesn't seem like something is working correctly with this, but I go ahead and use it because if you use a Time Rift on a group of enemies, and the little bit of pain or pain transfer, if it kills the enemies, that damage is spread to the other enemies. So you're just doing more damage. Now that's it for our Pax Tree. Let's go ahead and look at the Ascension. I'm up to 92, so I still got a lot to get through to get to level 200, but the ones that you want to go into, you want to make sure you're going into first, going to be your anomaly power, your anomaly damage, your resistance piercing, and your armor piercing. Those, I would say, are some of the most important ones to go into. I would also suggest going into the damage against elites. You only get 5.5% on this, but it's still 5.5% more damage to elites. After that, you can pretty much go into whatever other ones that you want to. I like going into the status power and skill life leech, as well as some extra health. And healing receive bonus. Again, it's another 5.5%, but when you level up in your apocalypse tiers, your healing received actually goes down. So it becomes harder to heal as you move up in tiers. So this is something that I wanted to get up and trying to kind of counteract the apocalypse tier, decreasing my healing. And what I'm going into right now is elite damage mitigation bonus, just because this is going to help with taking less damage from elites. So that's pretty much it for the build itself. I want to go ahead and do a little demonstration of the rotation. And this is going to be in some gameplay clips I'm going to include here at the end as well. But we need to go ahead and go to the Outriders camp, because we can't really do anything while we're sitting at the Warlord Concourse. So we're going to go ahead and go to the camp. I'm not going to be able to do all the skills here, but I just want to kind of give an idea. So what you really want to do is this order. You want to use your Hunt the Prey to get behind the enemy. You want to go ahead and then melee them. So you get 30% more anomaly power from our class tree. Then use your Time Rift. Get them floating. And then use your 2x Temporal Blades. This is pretty much going to finish off just about anything in the game. For some of the harder enemies, of course, like the Arbiters, Okriel, yeah, you're going to be doing your rotation a couple times to be able to kill them. But that's pretty standard. Not much that you're going to be able to do different as far as that goes. The build can hold its own. It can do a ton of damage. And you just need to do the rotation a few times. Luckily our cooldowns are quick, and we'll be able to get our rotation done and get our cooldowns back, get our skills back, and then do it again. Basically rinse and repeat until dead. So if we go over here, let's just pound Bailey here, pound sand, and let's take a look at our anomaly power once we hit her. So let's go ahead and melee there. You see our anomaly power just from that melee went up to 2.7 million. And let's go back down again, but 2.7 million just from doing that. Now let's take a look at what we hit. 3.2 million. Their anomaly power went up to from 2 million to 3.2 million from using one Temporal Blade. Now if you use your Hunt the Prey and your Time Rift, you're going to get even more. Now once you use all your skills, I like to switch over to the Anemoy, pop that reload, and then switch back to my pistols. Now you're going to lose the first things first, so you'd have to shoot again and reload. That's up to you if you want to do that. If you don't, you still have Death Renome that's going to be giving you free anomaly power. So, to recap, you're going to do Hunt the Prey, melee, Time Rift, 2x Temporal Blades, and then Moaning Winds with the Anemoy. Switch over to that for that burst damage. Switch back to your pistols. By the time you switch back, your Hunt the Prey should be back. You're ready to do your rotation again. I'm going to include a few gameplay clips here from a few expeditions that I ran on some of the bosses in those, and you'll be able to see what kind of damage this can do, especially to mobs of enemies and some of the bosses from these expeditions that were at my tier at the time that I recorded it. I believe they should be tier 31. I'm now 32, just barely touching in at 32, but these clips are a great demonstration of what this kind of build can do. So I will leave it with these clips. I hope this guide is going to provide you guys with a lot of information on how to make this build. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I am also on Lieutenant Buzz Lightbeer's Discord server with the name writer JJ89. If you guys have any questions, please hit me up on there. I'll gladly help you out, give you advice on your build, answer any questions that you have, and get you on the way to blasting big mobs of enemies with this new Temporal Blade Time Rift Anomaly Trickster. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.